The sky over Ouagadougou was heavy that night, as if the city itself sensed what was about to unfold. In Kosiam Palace, President Ibrahim Traoré walked alone down an ancient corridor, lit only by soft lights on the walls. His face was calm, but his heart pounded with the weight of something that could not be ignored. A warrior's intuition never failed him, and now it whispered, "There is poison in the air." It all began 10 days earlier, with a faint noise in the background. An unusual delay in a military report. A whisper cut short over the phone. A glance exchanged between two colonels during a meeting. Small cracks in the cement of trust. Traoré had learned early that in politics, especially when carrying a revolutionary past, betrayal never comes from outside. It grows like weeds among your own. In the early hours of that morning, as he reviewed documents in his office, a silent figure entered unannounced. It was an old employee, known only as Amadou, who had worked discreetly in the archives since the days of the revolution. He said nothing. He merely placed a small USB drive on the desk and said, "They've started digging the hole." And he left. The president watched the contents with fixed eyes. Voice recordings, images of secret meetings, names mentioned carelessly, promises made to foreigners in exchange for support. They were trying to sell the country, and they were close to succeeding. The next day, Traoré summoned the only man he trusted for such a task, Captain Nabazongo. Young, discreet, loyal to the bone. The two met outside the palace in a radio repair shop, camouflaged among broken equipment and toolboxes. "They don't know you're back from the north," the president said. "Use that. Be a shadow, find the names, prove everything, and don't speak to anyone, not even me, unless it's safe." Zongo nodded and vanished that same day. He assumed another identity, changed his clothes, burned his phone, and slipped into the corridors where betrayal breathed freely. Within 48 hours, he already knew two names that confirmed the USB's contents. Colonel Dabir and Lieutenant Suleiman, both in contact with foreign agents, both promising a peaceful transition after the fall of the current government. The plan was clear. They would exploit the Independence Day parade rehearsals to infiltrate disguised troops around the palace. The offensive would begin at dawn, when the guard was rotating. The national radio would be seized first, then the TV, with the image of a new leader declaring that Traoré had resigned for health reasons. But there was more. Zongo noticed a strange pattern. Many of the traitors' meetings took place near a recently renovated cultural center, a place with no surveillance but excellent acoustics for recordings. He installed hidden microphones and cameras and waited. That's how he heard the phrase that changed everything. "Yakuba is in. With him, the people won't react." Yakuba Seré, the same general who had carried Traoré on his shoulders during the revolutionary victory ceremony. The same man who spoke of sovereignty with tears in his eyes. He was the pillar upholding the military's false moralism. And now, the mastermind of the betrayal. Zongo didn't sleep that night. He only wrote, printed, and gathered evidence. He returned to the palace at dawn, delivering everything directly to the president. Traoré's gaze froze as he read the name. "Yakuba," he said, as if swallowing shards of glass. But he didn't shout. He didn't break anything. He just took a deep breath and said, "I'm calling Operation Silent Sand now." In the days that followed, the government acted as if nothing was happening. The president smiled at public events. He visited schools. He inaugurated a clinic. Meanwhile, in the shadows, new officers were secretly assigned to key posts. Barracks were restructured. Access codes changed. The entire framework of national security was flipped without anyone noticing. On the eve of the coup attempt, Traoré gathered his loyal team in an underground bunker outside the capital. Maps, audios, recordings, everything was meticulously reviewed. He pointed to a red-marked spot. "Yakuba will be here, waiting to celebrate our fall. Let's make him celebrate his own failure." Zongo was tasked with leading the final action. His men, all volunteers, all tested for loyalty, positioned themselves around the building. No words were spoken over the radios. Everything was silent. At 0:04, Dabir entered the building, followed by Suleiman and two other conspirators. At 0:17, Yakuba arrived, in a dark suit and with the demeanor of premature victory. and at 0:31, the doors were locked from the outside. "Soldiers of the people!" Zongo shouted as he entered with his unit. "No one shoots, no one dies. Only the truth will be carried out of here tonight." Yakuba froze. He knew he had lost. He tried one last move. "I did this for the country." But no one answered. Only silence, and the click of handcuffs. Meanwhile, at the palace, Traoré watched everything in real time. He didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. He just closed his eyes for a second, as if thanking the heavens for another day when the country didn't bleed. The next morning, before social media exploded with rumors and theories, the president appeared live on state TV. No suit jacket, no adornments, just a simple military uniform. "Today, I come as a soldier," he began, "because yesterday they tried to kill this nation's future with lies dressed in uniform." He didn't name names, he didn't shout, but he made it clear that no one was above the people. That betrayal would be met with justice, not vengeance, and that, as long as he breathed, Burkina Faso would be a land of free sons, not servants of foreign interests. The speech's impact still echoed through the radios when the arrests began. Silent, without fanfare, one by one. The names weren't immediately released. It wasn't time to feed chaos. The country was in a state of contained shock, like a tree struck by silent lightning, its leaves still green, but its trunk already split inside. As the population returned to their routines, unaware of the magnitude of what had been prevented, a new process began to take shape within the corridors of power. Traoré knew that capturing the traitors wasn't enough. The disease ran deeper. The system was contaminated, and he had no intention of treating only the symptoms. That same day, he created a special investigation group, named the Heart Commission, composed of ordinary people, teachers, jurists, farmers, mothers of soldiers, people who owed nothing to anyone except their conscience. Alongside Zongo, this group would have full freedom to investigate every division, every ministry, every officer with a rank. The questions were simple but direct. Where did this money come from? Why was this appointment made? Why does your name appear on 3 different bidding lists with foreign companies tied to the old regime? For every evasive answer, a new file was opened. For every lie, a new face was removed from their post. The population watched with a mix of surprise and admiration. No one believed the government would truly have the courage to confront the machine from within. But there they were. Old generals answering to young cadets, colonels responding to people's commissions, a country watching justice being born not by the hand of power, but by the hand of truth. 10 days after the coup's failure, Traoré called an emergency meeting with the military high command. All the names were there, the loyal, the silent, the ones who faltered in the critical hour. Standing, without a table, he looked each one in the eye. "Do you have children?" he asked. "Yes, sir," some replied. "And if tomorrow a foreigner knocks on your door offering gold to sell their future, what would you do?" Silence. A general cleared his throat but didn't answer. The president continued, "That's what happened here, and many of you watched in silence. I can't force you to love me, but I can demand that you love this country." He then revealed the new Armed Forces Statute, written during the long nights after the coup's discovery. No promotion would occur without a public hearing. No contract would be signed without total transparency. And above all, no officer could maintain financial ties, direct or indirect, with companies linked to foreign governments. The impact was immediate. Some tried to protest. One of them, General Sawadogo, one of the oldest, raised his voice. "This is populism, Mr. President. You're destroying the military hierarchy." Traoré approached calmly, placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "I'm not destroying the hierarchy. I'm returning it to the people. You think a uniform means power. I believe a uniform is responsibility. If you want power without responsibility, go serve somewhere else." The following week, the country experienced a sequence of changes that seemed like a dream. Young officers were promoted based on merit, not surnames. Field missions began to be monitored by civilian observers. And the revolution's symbol, the black star on a red background, started being distributed as a badge of honor, only for those who had resisted corruption. But not everyone was pleased. In Paris, Brussels, and Washington, international policy analysts frowned. The government they expected to replace was stronger than ever, and now, with renewed popular support, their channels of influence were drying up slowly, and the faces that once smiled at diplomatic dinners were being summoned to testify in public investigations. A leaked document from independent journalists revealed that, months before the coup, companies tied to former colonizers had promised financial stability to the new government if Traoré were removed. One clause explicitly stated, guarantee of silence regarding resource exploitation in the north of the country. When this information hit the streets, the outrage was immediate. Thousands took to the squares with banners. Our gold has no price. The people are not merchandise. Traoré, we won't sell what we've won. Markets closed early that day, not out of fear, but out of respect. It was one of those rare moments when commerce stopped to listen to the people. Amid this turmoil, a name began to gain traction on radios and social media. Sergeant Karim Sawado, the young man who had uncovered the final pieces of the puzzle. He became a symbol of silent loyalty, of discreet patriotism. Upon learning of this, Traoré made a bold decision. He brought him to a public event for the first time. At a technical school, in front of hundreds of students, the president took the floor and said, "You are the future. But to reach the future, we need bridges. This man here is a bridge. He risked his own life to protect you, asking for nothing in return." Sawado, visibly moved, didn't know what to say. He received from the president's hands the Guardian of the Homeland Medal, a distinction reserved for war heroes. And in that moment, the entire country saw that the new era wasn't made only of speeches, but of examples. Meanwhile, in international spheres, an uncomfortable silence settled in. Embassies avoided statements. Foreign analysts began using terms like aggressive autonomy or radical popular nationalism to describe Traoré's government. But in Burkina Faso, the people called it by another name, dignity. And Ibrahim knew this was only the first battle. The enemies hadn't vanished. They had merely retreated. But now they knew the country was alert, that the people would no longer be swayed by promises and diplomatic notes, and that the lions of Burkina had awakened. On a silent night, alone in his office, Traoré wrote a letter, not to be sent, but to be kept. It was addressed to a future president, perhaps still a child, who would one day sit in that same chair. Leading is not commanding, it is carrying. It is suffering in silence while protecting those who trust you. Never accept gifts from those who want to buy your people's destiny. Never fear being called radical by those who profit from our submission. And above all, never forget, a country only dies when its people kneel. And we, here, do not kneel. He sealed the letter, stored it in an iron box, and looked out the window. The city slept in peace. And for the first time in a long while, he slept too. The next morning, as the sun gilded Ouagadougou's rooftops, Ibrahim Traoré walked among the crowd without an escort. People greeted him not as a leader, but as a brother. An elderly man approached and said, "President, you woke us up." Traoré simply replied, "Now, we'll never sleep again." And he moved forward, simple, steadfast, invisible among his own. Because the true leader is not the one who seeks to be seen, but the one who refuses to abandon his people, even in the shadows. And in Burkina Faso, everyone knew, if the enemy returned, they would face an entire awakened nation.